Hello, welcome everyone. I'm excited to have you here today. I am Kelly Wayment and we are doing this, I don't know if we're calling it a club silhouette class or maker studio. Let me know if things seem to be working. We're still working out a little bit of the technology, so bear with us for that. But today we are going to be focusing a little bit on back to school because it is that time again. My son starts school on Monday and he's not excited about it, but I am. I get my house back. We're doing back to school designs, but I thought today would be fun to show you the shrink plastic. So there are two types of shrink plastic that Silhouette sells. There is a white version and a clear version, or translucent. I'm not sure. The packaging says clear, but I think it's listed as translucent if you're searching it in the store. But these are really fun. You can, this type of thing has been around for a long time. You print, in this case we're going to print on it. We're going to do a print and cut. And you can put it in the oven to shrink it. And the instructions are on the packaging. I think it's at maybe 325 degrees that you do it in the oven. But we are going to use just a heat gun. So this is a, I'm all tangled. This is a heat gun that is used for like embossing, melting embossing powder. I've had this for a while, but you can still buy heat guns. So that's one of the tools we're going to use to shrink our shrink plastic. Let's go over some other supplies. I'm using the Cameo 5, but since we're using letter size paper, you can also use the portrait. You can use actually any silhouette cutting machine. There's no advanced features needed for this. The shrink plastic's been around for a while. Let's see. It uses an inkjet printer. So, yeah, use an inkjet printer. I don't have one to show you because I've already got mine printed out. We're using the heat gun. You'll need a heat-proof surface when you're using the heat gun. So I've just got like this silicone mat. You don't want to burn spots in your wood or your countertop. You're probably okay also using like a stone countertop to when you're heating. I like to have a little tool handy. This is just a long skewer. You can also use some tweezers. You're just going to need something that's not your fingers to hold your design in place, your cutout in place as you're heating it with the heat gun, because you don't want to burn your fingers. Okay, so we have audio. Do we have video? All right, bear with us for a minute. Okay, so we have audio. Do we have video? All right, bear with us for a minute. Okay, so we have audio. Do we have video? All right, bear with us for a minute. We are trying to get the camera back on. I will just list a few other things that don't necessarily need the video for you to see. Okay, so we need a audio. Do we have video for pressing? So like a book or something that you can squash your designs right after they've finished heating and shrinking, just to make sure that they are flat. And then we're going to use, I'm going to use a cutting mat and just a regular auto blade. and we will use the Silhouette Studio software. And then we're going to use a couple of, well, we will use a back to school design, and I'll show you that when we get into the software. So are we okay to switch to screen share?
Yep.
Okay, so let's go ahead and look in the software. All right, so I've just got a blank page here, and we are going to use design number, or at least I'm going to use design number 300214. So that is just a fun back to school set that I found. So I already have that purchased, and I'm going to check my library. It's called Kawaii Back to School Sticker Set 2, number 300214. So I'm going to double click on that to open. And this one is going to tell me that it knows it's a print and cut, so it's going to turn on registration marks automatically. And so I'm going to click continue. If you don't want the registration marks, you can just hit cancel. I do need to change my media size. So here I am in the page setup panel, and I've got my machine. I'm using the Cameo 5, bead type auto, cutting mat. I'm using the 12 by 12. My media size I need to set to letter, because that's the size of these sticker, the shrink plastic sheets. And it's okay at the moment that the designer in this crosshatch area. If I were to be printing this immediately and cutting it like as stickers, I would need to shrink it down a little bit so I don't have anything in these crosshatch areas. But I have to make these larger for shrink plastic because they are going to shrink down. So I'm just going to move my designs off of the page, and I'm going to ungroup these. Just a right click and ungroup. And I believe these, yes, this set is set to go ahead and move the outline, the cut line with the design itself, so that's what we want. I'm going to use the bus, I'm going to use the laptop, I'm going to use one of the books, this cute pink book, and this mug. Now when you are doing shrink plastic, they're actually going to shrink down to maybe a third of the size that we have when we print them. So let's make these quite a bit bigger. You could change it with the scale to like 250 to 300%, but I went ahead and just resized these all to be about 3 to 4 inches wide. So I'm going to take my bus, I'm going to leave the aspect ratio locked up here. So I've got my bus selected, and I'm going to change the width, make sure that lock is on, change the width to 4 inches. Then my laptop, I'm going to change to 4.5 inches wide. My book, I'm going to change to 3 inches wide. And this mug, I'm going to change to 3 inches wide. And then it's just a matter of positioning these on the page so they are within this red cut border, but they are not having any of the printed area covering the crosshatch, because that will interfere with the registration marks. All right, so those, I usually can get about 4 designs, maybe 5 on a shrink plastic page when I'm printing it, because they are going to shrink down so much. They have to start out larger. The other thing I need to do, because these are a we're going to turn them into keychains, or if you wanted, you could turn these into jewelry. I'm going to draw a hole that I can put on each one of these. So I've grabbed my circle, my ellipse tool on the left, a drawing tool, and I'm just going to click and drag and hold my shift key, and I want that to be about a 1/2 inch in size, so about a 1/2 inch circle. To make it exactly, as long as my aspect ratio is locked, I can type in 0.5 inches for either the width or the height. And now I'm just going to leave that one in place, and I'm going to drag a copy over to each of my designs so I don't have to try and copy while that colored background is there. So I'm just going to hold my Alt key, or Option if you're using a Mac, click and drag that hole, and it will just drag away a copy. And I'm just going to hold Alt and click and drag a copy just to make a little hole for each of these designs. You don't want that hole to be too close to the edge, because we don't want it to be too brittle once it shrinks. All right, now if you did not have your registration marks enabled automatically, if you're using with a different design, different print and cut, the way you can do that is you can either type the letter M on your keyboard for a shortcut key for marks, turning the registration marks on or off, or in Silhouette Studio version 5, there's a print and cut tab where you can check the box for enable registration marks. All right, now at this point, it's ready to print, and I have chosen white shrink plastic sheets for this one. And I already have it printed, so I'm going to switch over to, if you want to print, it's just going to be this printer icon up here. I'm going to switch over to the design I have already printed. There it is. Yep, to make sure that I print where so it's going to cut on the design I've already printed. Once you print your document, you can't make any changes or it will not cut where you expect. All right, I'm going to go to my send panel. Let's check and make sure that the cut lines are where we need them. So this looks right. I've got bold red cut lines. And I've got that circle that's going to cut out. It's not going to cut out all those inner pieces or a double layer. So that's exactly what I want, kind of this larger sticker outline. And then these circles, those are all the things I want to cut. So at this point is where I would click Send to Printer. And when you click Print, it's going to bring up the dialog box to select your own printer. And that's where you're going to make sure that you have the right printer selected, and whether you need like a rear sheet feed. I usually am printing from the rear tray, so it doesn't have to go through any tight curves in my printer. I'm going to cancel this because I've already printed. And I need to try and get my connection working. So I'm going to turn off my machine. Hang on just a minute. All right, in just a second, I'll show you how to load that into the machine. Okay. All right, so we're gonna get this loaded. Move these little designs off to the side. So that is my printout. With the white, there is a glossy side and a matte side. You're going to actually print on the matte side. If you are using the translucent or clear shrink plastic, that one has a backing, and you're going to print on the side that does not have a backing. So there's just a little difference between the white and the clear. But I'm just going to add this to my cutting mat, same as any print and cut. Just make sure that you put your paper on your mat the same way that you do, that you see it on your screen. So upper left corner, make sure the registration marks look the same. All right, so I am just loading this in the machine, left edge along the guideline, left edge of my mat. Okay. If you go back to screen sharing just briefly. All right, so I am just loading this in the machine, left edge along. I have got I'm using tool holder 1, and I'm using shrink plastic. So you can just find that on the list as shrink plastic. And at least with my testing at home, the defaults work just fine. So it's actually going to set a blade depth of 6, a force of 33, and that is pretty heavy. So it's a speed of 1. When you're cutting really heavy things, you want a low speed. So that's at a speed of 1. And this I've actually got at 2 passes. I'm not sure if that's a default, but I did do 2 passes to make sure that it cuts all the way through. So I am ready to send this. Are we going to be able to see that cut? All right, so we are on audio right now. What my machine is doing is just reading the registration marks. It knows to check for registration marks as long as I have registration marks enabled. So this will take just a few minutes to cut because it's at a low speed. We'll see if we can get our cameras working. Do we have any questions or comments in the chat at all? Sounds like we do not. while we're waiting, if anybody does want to put questions or comments in the chat, tell me where you're viewing from. I don't know if you can hear the sound of the machine. My microphone might not be close enough to it, but at these low, slow speeds, I really like listening to my Cameo machine because it just sings. All right, I think we are on our last cut, our last design out of the 4. All right, so let's hope that cut all the way through. And it looks like it did. So I'm going to go ahead and unload this. And then it should have cut through, so we can just either peel off the designs first, or we can peel off the backing first. And then this piece can just be thrown away. And are we able to get an overhead shot? All right, so these I'm just taking off of my cutting mat. All right, and let me show you a couple of these. The colors will change. The colors, when you shrink them, will actually get a little bit darker, and you can see how much they're going to shrink. So if you have the option It just depends on how the design was made. If it's a single layer, then you can actually reduce the transparency to kind of soften up the colors. If the design is made of a whole bunch of layers, you can't change the transparency because the different layers will show up through each other. But this is kind of what you're going to get once you shrink it down, both in size and color change. So I'm just going to pop out the little hole and we will start shrinking these, because that is the fun part. All right, so a heat-proof surface, and make sure you only do one of these at a time. You will get a little bit of warping of your design. It's not going to be absolutely perfect, but it's still super fun to do. Okay, so I'm going to get my little tool here so I don't have to get my fingers burnt. I'm going to get a book ready to press it flat once it's done, and then my heat gun. I plugged that in a little too early, so I got a little tangle here. Okay. I have tried doing, like, if you want it to be a perfect circle when you're done, you may not have perfect success with that. So that's why I like to go with shapes that aren't perfect squares or circles. You'll get just a little bit of warping. And the other thing, oh, don't make it too big. Like, if it gets more than about 4 inches big, you're not going to be able to shrink it evenly. It just doesn't work very well. So you want to work with designs that are not larger than about 4 inches. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn this on. In just a minute, you're going to see this start to shrivel. All right, now don't panic if it starts to curl in on itself. You just keep going and keep going until it goes flat again. And this is where I like to have a little tool to keep it from blowing away. And I can press a little bit with the tool while it's hot. All right, now once you see that it's not shrinking anymore, that's when you get your flat surface ready. And I'm actually going to cover that. If you have your object that you're using for pressing and you press directly against the little cutout, your shrink plastic, it'll leave the texture of whatever you're pressing. So that's why I like to keep it between the smooth silicone mat. Okay, so there is our first one. And you can see that the colors have gotten a little bit darker. Let's do another one. I'm going to do the little book because that's so cute. almost done, so we'll squash it flat. So that is what the white ones look like. It's kind of nice with the white to have this crisp white edge. I also want to show you a couple of the translucent ones. So here is, let's see, let's do this little, let's do the little backpack. I have noticed with the translucent type that it is a little bit prone to tearing when you're peeling this backing away from it. So just be really careful with the translucent type that it doesn't tear. All right, let's do this little backpack. And I will tell you that I tried, well, you can't heat press the shrink plastic with your heat press, but I did use the crochet that was completely turned off, or silhouette crochet, to use as a press while it was hot, because it has that heat-proof surface. So I would just hold just place the design on the crochet and use the heat from the heat gun to heat it up, and then I just clamped down the crochet as my smooth flat surface, and that actually worked pretty good to get nice flat objects. All right, let's see. Still any comments? All right. Well, then let me give you a little sneak peek. I believe that you are probably getting your, for Club Silhouette members, you're getting your free designs tomorrow. And so these are some of the Club Silhouette designs. So I thought it might be fun to see how these turned into shrink plastic. So they're not meant to be shrink plastic designs, but you can turn most printable things into a shrink plastic design. So that was originally intended as a bookmark, but I shrunk it down a little bit and thought that might make a cute little necklace. So I do have some keychains. You can use any type of keychain you want. Or you can stick a little jump ring through there, so you can add it to a necklace or even earrings. But let's turn some of these into keychains. I had mentioned that you could turn down the transparency on some of your designs so you would not get quite such bold colors. So like this on the white, this yellow school bus turns a little bit orange. The colors get quite a bit more vivid. And so I tried to turn down the transparency on the next set I did, but they were kind of a watercolor design and they actually didn't need the transparency turned down. So this is full strength color and this is the color with some transparency. So I actually like the bold color better for these watercolor designs. But when you are adding a keychain, that's why we added that little hole. So that started out as a ½ inch, and you can see how small it shrunk down, but that is still the right size for just putting in a little ball bead keychain. You can, like this one is a little closer to the top, the hole is, so you could put a jump ring in there and add that to a necklace. I think that'd be fun for your elementary school children to have little necklaces like that, but these will be fun to put on backpacks and whatever. Something like this is also fun to have your kids or grandkids pass out to their friends. I know my kids love it when I make a whole bunch of something related like this and they can just hand out little handmade charms or keychains to their friends. Let's see, I've got a couple other designs. These other small ones are from, let me get you the design ID number on that. That was design number 446739. And then really any sticker set, you can take a sticker set, make it bigger so they're 3 or 4 inches big, and then when you shrink them down they can become these cute little charms. All right. I think if we don't have any questions, then we are probably good for today. I'm going to finish shrinking these, but you don't have to spend the time watching me shrink them, even though it is fun. Yeah, if we don't have any questions, thanks for joining me today. And you're always welcome to give project suggestions on things you'd like to learn how to use or techniques you'd like to learn. But thanks so much for joining me, and hopefully we'll see you next time.